And if not, we will be the only democratic space which doesn't have a law, which at least wants to increase transparency and give us a chance to know who is paid by third countries' governments. This is the last thing I want to say on the substance, because also there was a criticism that all the money coming from abroad. No, it will be about the money paid by third countries' governments and state organizations.
Do you think social media platforms, big social media platforms, are doing enough to fight disinformation, because the current European system is on voluntary basis and Twitter is leaving even that system?
Well, soon we will have the Digital Services Act in force, and it will be, it is legally binding, heavyweight legislation, which seeks to increase the responsibility of the platforms. And it's a reaction of something which we saw evolving over years, that the platforms are grabbing too much power and are reluctant to take relevant responsibility. Before that, and parallel with that, we have the Code of Practice against disinformation, which indeed is a voluntary agreement. At this moment, we have 44 signatories. We have all the big platforms except Twitter. We can do a lot with it, but of course, it has some gaps still. What I want to change. First of all, better address Russia and pro-Kremlin disinformation, because this is a clear-cut case. The war propaganda has to be removed, and we are in the information war, and so there should be no compromise. Second, we want the platforms to consistently moderate and invest in fact-checking. It cannot be done only in English or German. It has to be done in all member states' languages. And the tricky thing is that the more you go to the east of Europe, the bigger the pressure from Russian propaganda appears. So we want them to invest in fact-checking in these countries. We see big influence of Russian propaganda on Slovakia, on Bulgarian public opinion. We see increased pressures on German communities, and especially using some domestic proxies. And this is a new thing when the Russian propaganda is being taken over by the extremist parties in the EU. This is a dangerous new stage. So better moderation. The third thing, what we want from the platforms, is to enable the researchers better access to data. We need the researchers to analyze the situation. When I say we, the rules makers, because I would like internet and social media to remain the free zone for free speech. So also my concern is not to overshoot with the rules which we are taking, but to come with proportionate necessary measures, we need to know what's happening, and the researchers should help us with serious, thorough analysis. The fourth thing, and this is a new agenda, and I asked on Monday the platforms to consider that, it's the new development in generative artificial intelligence. And here, again, the code can be a quick vehicle, a quick response.
This is actually the next question, because ChatGPT is raising concerns about fake news, impersonalization. A lot of people are worried about generally the spread of the artificial intelligence. And are you afraid that in the future the line between reality and fiction will disappear?
Not. But in case the people themselves, those who read and see the visuals, are able to see that this concrete thing is the production of AI. And we have to be stubborn on that. We have to insist that the production of artificial intelligence is being properly and in a clear and understandable way labeled. We have an example of, I will take the fact-checking, which we want to be up and running in the member states. Once the piece of disinformation is being labeled and the facts are added, we see big change in behavior of the user. In most of the cases, such disinformation is not sent further. The people think about it. So the same logic, I believe, will work when the people see that this is the production of robot. I can take it seriously, I may not, but I would like to say that we are in a critical moment in history when we have to defend real people. How to do it? Not to give robots the freedom of speech, not to give robots the automaticity in reach, and not to protect the production of robots by copyright. I think these are very simple principles, always based on the mantra that we have to protect the existing rights of real people.
When you look at the rule of law battle between the European Union and Poland and Hungary, there are new tools that the EU is using, especially in the case of Hungary, suspensions of EU payments. Do you think this will bring the results closer?
Well, we see it on Hungary that the conditionality and the freezing of the funding brings results after many years of stabilization of the situation, which we didn't want to see from the point of view of the rule of law. Now we see that in Hungary there is judiciary reform ongoing. There is a lot of measures taken to increase the protection of EU funding. So the Hungarian professionals, the officials are doing their best to convince us that the things will be put in order in Hungary. Of course, we would like to see broader action, but for the moment, I have to say that the financial pressure is maybe more successful than maybe some legal measures. But we have to do everything, also using the infringements in Article 7.
Talking about infringement, the European Commission just launched an infringement against Poland because they are proposing a new law which is actually inwards against foreign pressure, foreign influence. But in reality, many NGOs and the opposition is afraid that it can be used as a political weapon against them. So how do you see this issue?
Well, we expressed it by a very quick reaction on this law, unprecedented quick reaction, because we see this law as the law endangering democratic battle or democratic way of doing things. Of course, there will be elections in Poland, but even if there are not elections so early, we would have to react, because this is a principal thing. I always say we have to protect elections better, and that was one of your questions on whether it could be influenced by malicious actors. And up to now, I always saw the danger that there will be the political opponents in the campaign who will have to play the game up the hill, and there will be no referee to fairly decide. But this is a new chapter, because the Polish law says that some teams, some people cannot enter the playground. And that's why, regardless of the upcoming elections in Poland, we had to react, because to establish the purely political body, which should have the competencies compared with prosecutors or judges, according to how we assess the situation, it's breaching the EU law.
Vera Jourova, thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you very much.
Catch up on the stories that matter in European politics. Straight in your inbox. Sign up on euronews.com/newsletters. The Briefing, our weekly newsletter on European politics.
Life is about balance, about give and take. And forests give us so much. They purify our water. They clean our air. They fight climate change by capturing carbon. They give us food, life-saving medicines, and they improve our well-being. But our forests are vulnerable. They are endangered by fires, pests, droughts, and other threats. That is why we need to look after them. We need to give, not only take. Healthy forests for healthy people.
Looking for trustworthy climate coverage? Sign up for our green newsletter. Get eco news and green views delivered straight to your inbox. Sign up today on euronews.com/green.
It's been such an amazing time for me here, Romania.
Like that? It's changed your approach to plastic waste?
The intersections between art and technology are truly endless.
How do you provide creativity for the team? Or myself, I definitely have the coolest job in the world.
Your next news bulletin on Euronews is coming up in under 2 minutes.
UK former Prime Minister Boris Johnson is found to have lied to Parliament over lockdown parties following a damning report.
Residents in southern Greece mobilised to help survivors of a shipwreck in the Mediterranean, which killed at least 79 migrants.
Captured Ukrainian soldiers go on trial in Russia as Moscow launches missile strikes on residential areas.
Tensions are mounting in the Balkans after Serbia detains 3 Kosovo police officers. Belgrade claims were inside Serbian territory.
The UK's former Prime Minister Boris Johnson deliberately misled lawmakers and would have been banned from Parliament's lower house if he hadn't resigned last week. A scathing report from the House of Commons Privileges Committee found Johnson had lied about holding parties during the pandemic lockdown. He stood down as an MP on Friday ahead of the publication of the damning report. It's the culmination of a year-long investigation into Johnson's conduct during the pandemic, which also found he was complicit in the campaign of abuse and attempted intimidation of the committee. It's the latest episode in the so-called Partygate scandal, which revealed members of Johnson's staff held a series of parties in 2020 and 2021 when such gatherings were prohibited by pandemic restrictions. Johnson dismissed the committee as a kangaroo court, which hadn't looked at the facts.
A search and rescue operation continued overnight for any migrants who may have survived the sinking of an overcrowded fishing boat off the Greek coast. As the enormity of the tragedy became clear, at least 79 dead and hundreds more thought to be missing, residents in the southern city of Kalamata have been trying to help the survivors.
Έχουμε συγκλονιστεί. Το αντιλαμβάνεστε αυτό. Είναι κάτι το οποίο δεν μπορεί να το συλλάβει ο νους του ανθρώπου. Όλοι είμαστε γονείς, είμαστε άνθρωποι και όταν ακούμε τέτοια πράγματα να συμβαίνουν, προφανώς τρασόμαστε και προβληματιζόμαστε για όλα αυτά που μπορεί να συμβούν. Η τοπική κοινωνία έχει ευαισθητοποιηθεί. Εμείς ως Δήμος Καλαμάτας είχαμε φτιάξει το φαγητό το βραδινό, αλλά αθλητικός φορέας, αθλητικός σύλλογος της περιοχής έφερε πριν από λίγο 160 μερίδες μέσω catering για να μπορέσει να τις προσφέρει στον κόσμο. Και έχω δεχτεί πάρα πολλά τηλέφωνα για επιχειρήσεις της περιοχής μας να μας φέρουν ρούχα, να μας φέρουν οτιδήποτε χρειαζόμαστε, να μας φέρουν φαγητό για αύριο το μεσημέρι. Όλοι έχουν αντιδράσει θετικά, δηλαδή έχουν ευαισθητοποιημένοι.
The shipwreck is the deadliest off Greek shores this year, prompting the country to declare 3 days of national mourning.
Πρακτικά η σκέψη μας είναι μαζί όταν συμβαίνει κάτι τέτοιο. Δεν θέλουμε να έχουμε νεκρούς ούτε στο μέρος μας ούτε πουθενά. Οι άνθρωποι έχουν δικαίωμα να έρχονται στη χώρα μας και στην Ευρώπη και πρέπει να τους φροντίζουμε. Είναι απίστευτο το πώς με 2 μποφόρ μπορεί να έγινε όλο αυτό το κακό. Εύχομαι να βρουν όσο γίνεται περισσότερους άνθρωπους σε καλή κατάσταση και όσο γίνεται να δείξουμε την ανθρωπιά μας και εμείς από εδώ και να βοηθήσουμε με όποιο τρόπο μπορούμε.
Our correspondent was in Kalamata.
Μόλις οι πρώτοι διασωθέντες μεταφέρθηκαν στο λιμάνι της Καλαμάτας, εδώ βρέθηκαν και αρκετοί πολίτες που προσέφεραν ρούχα, τρόφιμα και φάρμακα. Στο πλευρό των μεταναστών βρίσκονται ψυχολόγοι που όμως δεν μπορούν να απαντήσουν στο επίμονο ερώτημα των διασωθέντων: τι έγινε, πού βρίσκονται οι δικοί μας άνθρωποι. Από την Καλαμάτα και το Euronews, Απόστολος Στάικος.
More than 20 captured Ukrainian soldiers have gone on trial in southern Russia. They were members of the Azov Battalion, an elite Ukrainian armed forces unit that fought Russian troops in the Sea of Azov port of Mariupol. Russia captured Mariupol last year after a 3-month battle which reduced most of the city to ruins. Moscow considers the Azov Battalion a terrorist group. In Ukraine, Russian missile strikes have hit residential areas in the south and east of the country. In Kramatorsk, a huge crater was left after demolishing several houses, although Russia claims its targets are military and warehouses. Kiev has claimed fresh advances in its long-awaited counteroffensive, although Western officials say Russia is inflicting substantial casualties. The delayed trip to Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant by UN nuclear chief Rafael Grossi is now expected to go ahead. It'll be Grossi's first trip since the breach of the Kakhovka Dam on the 6th of June. The plant is located upstream from the incident and takes its cooling water from the reservoir formed by the dam.
The arrest of 3 Kosovo policemen said by Belgrade to be found deep inside Serbian territory has further escalated tensions between the Balkan neighbours. The 3 are accused of being there illegally. Peter Petkovic, the head of the Serbian government office for Kosovo, said that the policemen were heavily armed and equipped with GPS devices, maps and other equipment. Kosovo Prime Minister Albin Kurti counterclaimed on social media that they had been carrying out their duties and were arrested by Serbia 300 metres inside Kosovan territory. In response to the detentions, Kosovo has ordered border police to stop all trucks with Serbian plates and those carrying Serbian goods. Hours earlier, there had been angry protests over the arrest on Tuesday of a Serb identified by Pristina as an organiser of assaults on NATO peacekeepers during unrest last month. Since that flare-up in violence, when 30 peacekeepers and 52 Serbs were injured in clashes in predominantly Serb municipalities in northern Kosovo, NATO's KFOR peacekeeping troops have been on the alert for any incident which could trigger further unrest.
Protesters in Poland showed their anger on Wednesday at their country's tough abortion laws following the death of a young pregnant woman. Thousands turned out in Warsaw and in other cities and towns across the country after a young woman died of sepsis in May. She was in the 5th month of pregnancy when amniotic fluid broke and the doctors waited for the fetus to die on its own. Poland only allows abortion in cases of rape and incest or if the life or health of the mother is in danger.
Germany has woken up to the growing military, economic and social risks it faces. That was the message from the government as it unveiled an integrated security strategy, unprecedented in the country's post-World War II history. The approach was first mooted by the ruling coalition 2 years ago, but has been given new impetus by Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Konsequenterweise folgt die nationale Sicherheitsstrategie dem Leitbild einer integrierten Sicherheit. Es geht nicht allein um Verteidigung und Bundeswehr, sondern um die ganze Palette unserer Sicherheit, über Diplomatie genauso wie Polizei, Feuerwehr und technische Hilfswerke, über die Entwicklungszusammenarbeit, über Cybersicherheit und über die Resilienz von Lieferketten.
Germany's foreign ministry says integrated security was crucial at both an international and national level.
Und so wie wir integrierte Sicherheit mit unseren Partnerinnen und Partnern, insbesondere in der Europäischen Union und in den Vereinten Nationen zusammendenken, bedeutet integrierte Sicherheit eben auch innere und äußere Sicherheit zusammenzudenken.
Berlin has stepped up military spending since the Ukraine war, and the document confirms that Russia will be regarded as the greatest security threat for the foreseeable future. But in a departure from long-standing policy, it also advocates the need to be wary of China as a potential risk to national interests.
Austria is to close down its oldest still-printed daily newspaper. The Wiener Zeitung belongs to the Republic and is described as quality press. But after the 30th of June, it will be published primarily online. The editorial team is unhappy as the move will lead to many job losses.
Die Wiener Zeitung gibt es seit 1703. Wir hätten heuer im Sommer unser 320-jähriges Jubiläum gefeiert. Und diese Zeitung hat einfach sehr, sehr viele Dinge begleitet, auch als Zeitzeugin. Der Text der Menschenrechtserklärung wurde hier abgedruckt. Es haben große Persönlichkeiten wie Mozart und Beethoven hier inseriert. Und es ist einfach auch ein historisches Bewusstsein, das ich in der Politik vermisse.
The government decided to stop the daily print edition, claiming a new EU directive now restricts the newspaper's main source of income, the so-called mandatory publication.
Die Pflichtveröffentlichung bedeutet, dass Unternehmerinnen und Unternehmer ihren Jahresabschluss in der Wiener Zeitung veröffentlichen mussten, dafür gezahlt haben, und das wird es in Zukunft in der Form nicht mehr geben, in der Finanzierungsform, und daher musste die Finanzierung verändert werden.
In den letzten 5 Jahren ist Österreich im internationalen Pressefreiheitsranking vom Rang 11 auf Rang 29 abgestürzt. Nicht nur wegen der schrumpfenden Zahl an Tagesblättern, es wird auch angeklagt, dass die Regierung gezielt Inserate in Medien finanziert, um die Berichterstattung zu beeinflussen. Johannes Bleschberger, Euronews, Wien.
China has taken a further step in its endeavour to become a mediator in international conflicts. After receiving his Palestinian counterpart Mahmoud Abbas in Beijing on Wednesday, President Xi Jinping pledged to work towards an end to Israeli-Palestinian hostilities. As Beijing looks to expand its presence in the Middle East, Abbas and Xi also agreed to upgrade their bilateral relations to strategic partnership status. Xi called on world leaders to accept the Palestinian state as a full member of the UN.
The US Federal Reserve is keeping its key interest rate unchanged at 5 to 5.25% after more than a year of consecutive rate increases. The decision reflects analysis of the state of inflation in the country. After it reached a 40-year high of 9.1% in June 2022, inflation last month was down to 4%, the lowest in more than 2 years. The European Central Bank announces its rate decision today.
Environmental campaigners targeted a Claude Monet painting in Stockholm's National Museum, daubing red paint on the protective case before gluing their hands to it. The organisation Återställ våtmarker, meaning restore the wetlands, claimed responsibility for the action. The group claims the Swedish government is failing to honour its international commitments in terms of environmental policy.
Je suis au cœur de l'Auvergne, région française connue pour ses volcans et la qualité de ses eaux. Mais la ressource se raréfie et l'usage d'eau potable est soumis à restrictions. Beaucoup pointent du doigt la société d'embouteillage d'eau minérale Volvic, filiale de Danone. Une enquête en eau trouble, à voir bientôt dans Witness.
Now is the time for a new impulse. Moving from a stable ground to a tipping point. Now is the time to be ahead. Now is the time for agility, for sustainable acts. Now is your time.
Oh, how about a spark of inspiration? Yeah! Try that on for size. Level up in Forge of Empires. Play now for free at FOE.tv or download the app.
To choose Grana Padano is to embrace its unique Italian values. A moment to be shared. Grana Padano, an Italian feeling.
How do we connect with culture?
See it.
Hear it.
Taste it.
Smell it.
Touch it.
Live it. Spark your senses. Wake your wonder.
So much bad news about our planet. It's so overwhelming.
C'est cette question qui m'obsède. Pourquoi on sait, mais on n'agit pas?
Ce votre vie, un moment historique.
Human, healthy climate.
Some, les gardiens de cette planète.